heavy rains caused the Minnesota River to rise and floodwaters to flow. In our 5 flood watch, we will have extensive coverage for you and pictures from several towns that are trying to ward off disaster. We will be showing you what it's like in Mankato, Henderson, and St. Peter, and we'll fill you in on the road closings. But first, the latest from Le Sueur, Minnesota. Art Barron has just arrived in the area, and he joins us now by phone. Art?
Lauren, the Highway 93 bridge in the south end of Le Sueur is closed right now. The swollen Minnesota River is dumping water on farm fields. It's just incredible looking, a sea of water, if you can picture that. By Wednesday, it'll crest 14 feet above flood stage. In Sibley County, just 2 miles down the Highway 169 from here, they're evacuating people from a motel because water is flooding 14 units, seeing them take out a lot of furnishings out, loading them on a truck. Just across from the motel, they're salvaging what they can by boat from a supper club. The water there is now chest high and rising fast. Most of the residents of Le Sueur live on a hill, so they aren't so worried, but other communities such as Henderson are bracing themselves, sandbagging bridges in anticipation of the worst flooding since 1969. And of course, you'll recall that's when thousands of people were evacuated with damage in the tens of millions of dollars all along the Minnesota River. Reporting live in Le Sueur, Art Barron, Channel 5, Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Art. Well, 5's flood watch continues with video from other areas that are bracing for the worst flooding they've seen in years. In Henderson, several roads are gushing waterways, and for the first time, residents had to put in floodgates along the dike that was originally built in 1969. This is the only permanent flood wall in the state with removable gates. And in Mankato, here's a look at some home video taken by Channel 5 viewer Ian Ezron. Much of Sibley Park is now underwater, and would you believe that pole sticking out of the water is actually a road sign? If it weren't for this new 39-foot dike built in 1989, much of downtown Mankato would be washed out. Authorities this morning are warning curiosity seekers to stay away from the river or face arrest. Well, here's a look at St. Peter, located about 65 miles southwest of the Twin Cities. As you can see, Highway 22 is completely covered with water. And now you're looking in Jordan, Minnesota. That normally there's 20 feet between the bottom and top of these falls, but now the water's so high that distance has been greatly reduced. And as we mentioned earlier, there are several traffic problems due to the flooding. Highway 169 at the Shakopee Bridge is closed because of water over the roadway. And just this morning, Highway 41 near Chaska also closed. Other parts of Highway 169 are also closed, shut down between Mankato and St. Peter and around the Le Sueur area. Other highways closed include 93 between Le Sueur and Henderson, as well as Highway 19 between 169 and Henderson. And finally, Highway 66 south of Mankato and Highway 22 south of St. Peter are also closed. For an alternate route, you can use Highway 14 to Mankato and then 99 to St. Peter. Well, south central Minnesota isn't the only area experiencing flooding problems. Our 5's flood watch continues in western Wisconsin in the towns of Hatfield and Black River Falls. The sun is shining there now, and waters are starting to recede after a brutal day of flooding. 500 people have been evacuated.
You can see it's been very heavy. We have 1 to 2 inches in the lightest shade of the green just off to the north. Here in the Twin Cities alone, in the past week, we've had 3.28 inches of rainfall. Even down into the southwestern part of Minnesota, some of the areas there, 6 inches plus. Same thing into the extreme southeastern areas, 6 inches plus there, and it looks like we should just add to that by the time we get into the midweek period. Again, some of those storms could be heavy along about Wednesday. Another good day coming up for tomorrow. Earlier today, here's how things were outside. It was a gorgeous day, unless we were trying to cross some of the rivers. You can see flooding, huge problems, as we just saw in the stories before this. But all in all, if you are doing anything outdoors today, it did turn out to be pretty nice. Officially, the high temperature today across the metro, 84 degrees, 4 degrees warmer than we should be. 50 the low this morning, and 59 is the average there. Looks like
has filled the roadways. Some area farms are underwater. Residents already hit with high water are bracing for more. As the river moves northeast from Mankato, flood warnings are also out tonight for communities along the way like Henderson, Chaska, and Savage. Now, once the Minnesota meets the Mississippi River in St. Paul, it is expected to push the Mississippi over its banks. Emergency teams are already preparing the downtown for floods. The airport could be under 4 feet of water by this weekend. Dikes and sandbags are planned to protect downtown area businesses.
So we expect it'll be coming up over the wall and coming up and covering Shepherd Road here, and we'll have to block off the Sibley and Jackson Street roads so we can keep the water contained.
Emergency officials plan to put a crane on this railroad bridge at Robert Street, hoping its weight will keep the bridge from being swept away. Harriet Island is expected to be underwater as well, so if you plan to attend any of the weekend concerts there, you'll want to pay attention to updates to see where and when those concerts will be held. But the threat right now involves communities like Savage and Shakopee. The Minnesota River is expected to break its banks there.
Cause of flooding.
We don't have thousands of people working. We don't have the town evacuated like in the past. And yet we're monitoring, we're watching it, but you're really witnessing a federal flood control project at its finest. And now we can sit back and say the money was well spent. It really is keeping us dry during a very high water period.
The flood wall and dikes further down the river in Mankato will be patrolled 24 hours a day until the flood threat diminishes. Road conditions in southern Minnesota have been strongly affected by the torrential rain and floods. State roads 99 and 22 south of St. Peter have been closed, and the Minnesota Department of Transportation says the road's bridges are in danger of structural damage. However, they are not the only things in danger.
Well, we have several homes that are flooded, basements flooding, and you got basements that the water's coming up through the sewer system, and it's coming through the basement walls on a half a dozen homes.
Now here are some of the area highway closures. 169 from Mankato to St. Peter is temporarily closed, as well as Highway 22 from Mankato to St. Peter. 169 north of St. Peter has been reduced to one-lane traffic, and Highway 99 from St. Peter to Cleveland has also been closed. Other highways temporarily flooded and thus closed include 19 from 169 to Henderson, 93 from 169 to Henderson, 93 from 169 to Le Sueur, and 66 south of Mankato. Well, the city of Mankato's infrastructure is also being threatened by the rising waters, and city officials are keeping a watchful eye on developments. But as News 12's Paul Braun reports, that cautious attitude among state and local leaders is costing some local businesses much-needed revenue.
Reclaim the Minnesota River. It's a catchy marketing phrase, but right now, most folks would just like the river to recede. The river was expected to crest late this afternoon at just over 32 feet, well below existing flood protection levels, but still high enough to threaten the Mankato wastewater treatment plant.
If the water were to go up another 3 or 4 feet, then some of the wastewater treatment plant could be impacted severely. We've taken precautionary measures against that. We have built a temporary dam around the low portions, and then we have sandbagged the primary building down there.
Because the wastewater plant is the lowest building in the city, Rosati said the extra precautions were necessary. But some business owners on Highway 169 today said shutting down the road just north of Highway 14 hurt their businesses.
If they're going to shut the approach off, I guess the field it should be cut off so that people can get from this location onto the ramp and make a loop either east or west, and then into Mankato or our place. Also, it will satisfy the needs of the city with regard to fire and police protection, so they don't have to bring a truck out here and leave it set here.
Workers spent the weekend and part of today loading sandbags and building protective dikes around the buildings. The owner of this gas station actually built an earthen dam around his pumps. Businesses along the stretch are open if customers can find a way to get to them. In the meantime, floodwaters continue to rise and cover Highway 169, causing commuters who brave the road closed signs to run afoul of the driving conditions. In Mankato, Paul Braun, News 12.
The flooding in St. Peter led to some tense moments when a man had to be rescued after going into a flooded area. Safety officials were able to rescue the man, but they're urging everyone to stay off the river until things return to normal.
Well, the biggest thing I can tell people right now is just stay off the river. We've got a lot of reports of people going out by canoes and boats and so forth, trying to rescue things. Don't do it. The only thing you're doing is putting your own life and the rescuers' lives in danger by going out in the water right now. Just stay off the water.
Some good advice, and much more still ahead on the nighttime edition. Southern